2, 1.
Oh, it's even better. Yep.
And it will be sound. Дорогие друзья, я хочу сегодня говорить о методе я называю полное программирование. Don't worry, I will stop that. No, it's one in a lifetime chance to brag with my Russian. No, actually, it has a different reason. Because when I started to learn Russian, you do it, of course, with the simple phrases like "nya", "zavut", and so on, which means my name is so and so. You could, of course, say "nya nya", but what I later found out, "nya zavut" actually means they call me, which is something we do, maybe a habit, not what we are. And my talk will be about mainly about this important distinction, comparing to methods of programming, because in my humble, not so humble opinion, maybe we take too much for given, which can be changed. There are still things to develop, to be bettered, and we should be free to improve things. Yeah, and maybe you don't like most of the ideas that I will come up with. That's not the important bit. The important bit is don't take it as the 10 Commandments, how people do it today. It will be improved greatly, and people will look at the things we do now and laugh at it, maybe. All right. Let's see. This means translated complete programming, which is in part just a pun, because programs are never completed, but in part bitter reality, because we should look at the program as a whole and not just maybe the line of code we're currently working on, which is the central idea of what I'm trying to talk about now. Yeah, like I said, this was the thing with the Yao Zavut, that was the according slide. Yeah, and because of course the methodologies often resemble to the things this guy, you know him? Was I.P. Pavlov, mostly known because of this metro station, for me at least, which I was partially, spent a lot of time in Prague. But he's of course known for his experiments with the dogs and the slime. Yeah, but that's exactly not I'm talking about, because certain people have certain rules. They do that and that, and then you do that and that. So don't be that cat. There's like a lot that we entered. Of course, we had this classic waterfall. It was too rigid. Then we had in the later years the agile. I will go over much over that because we have 20 minutes anytime, which is also agile has of course a very wide range of interpretation, but in my point of view, it's often not very often too short-sighted. Just in a book I recently wrote a recension to. It showed up that people who actually work in the practice also share that opinion. Yeah, of course we like to hack and look into our code and make things which is a little bit like the notion of, or at least the name extreme programming suggests that. And what is like the basic overall idea I want to come across, that yes, programming is fun, and inside complete programming I will give a lot of space to it, to the hacking type, but it's not actually our goal. Our goal is to make a complete program with all the documentation, I know, now it sounds like no fun, like I want to make your life miserable. But wait, we can improve that a bit. Yes, but be honest, guys, that is our goal. That's what we simply want to do. We want to deliver good software, usable software, which of course includes documentation and many things which doesn't sounds nicely at first. Yeah. So important lesson is not panic. Also,
panic.
what?
Panic. It's working. Don't panic.
Ah shit. That was a conspiracy. No, no, just a network. I wasn't logged in and I don't want to. With the don't panic, I mean it in a double sense, because also the basic idea in complete programming is also follow the natural flow of the idea to materialization, and not to panic along the way if you have just partial solutions, or it's like enjoy all the ride, you know, because we are conscious to make a complete program, and we see, even if we write, for instance, documentation and see how it is a part of the whole, which we want to do, we can enjoy it as a part, and don't panic, oh yeah, I have to write this line of code, and so no, because I'm still working on the whole. Yeah, of course, because the scientific approach, which is much prevalent, has a certain mindset which doesn't often has a great value for like the soft skills or like the emotional things, but it is important because if you give importance more to the emotional natures, you get a sense of the flow of the ideas into materialization, because I came with these things up not because maybe I'm the greatest programmer, but I also write, like for Pearl magazine and for others, and when I write articles, I tried various methods, like to write texts and write it over and see certain flows, and it came from there. Yes, like I said. Alright, these are the basic steps of complete programming in that order. Just to cut the crap, you see what's mostly about, and these also 4 basic steps we're gonna through, because like the concepts are still a bit rough, I'm still working on it. Yeah, step 1, docs. Like I said, maybe many of you don't like the idea of writing docs, but I think because it's done in a wrong way in many times. Because first of all, it helps you, and you have to do it early when it's not so much work. Yeah, that's why in complete programming we start not the project with a certain other planning phase, but when we like starting a feature, we draft it on paper like documentation, because your first idea is the most fuzzy. Yeah, as you said, oh, I want to do that, and if you see it like in front of you on paper, it actually helps you to formulate what you actually want to do. It goes a little bit like document-driven development, which I gave a talk about 2 years ago at German Perl workshop. It's a bit like the sequel of that, but got much more extended in other ways. If you do write the docs incrementally and keep it in sync with the actual stuff, it's much less work, and it actually supports you in developing the feature. It helps you in becoming more conscious of what you actually want to do, and then if the boss says, oh come on, release date in 2 weeks, we need all the right documentation, you can just relax because it's already there. Yeah. Of course, what I also put emphasis on is like even the planning stations are like kind of documentation, because as one other reason why documentation is often hated is because when they don't even hear the word documentation, what just hits the brain is overhead stuff I don't want to use. But you basically can cut the overhead if you just write down things that are needed. Yeah, like this, the stages that the app should be developed in, because you need certain abstractions and so. Yeah, and just go with a brief overview and immediately start the coding what can you code at that stage without. Yeah, of course it is important, like collect the features and the direction where you're going to go at first, so you don't have to rewrite like the core layers later. That's fine. And the app will of course grow, and you should also plan for the growth, like you say you want these and these feature sets, and that's why these and these abstraction layers, or maybe these classes. As soon you like cut out the rough edges, you can do your extreme programming thing. Like I said, docs help you to condense your thoughts, and it also is a very good means of communication. It is when you actually don't have your information redundant, but all in one repository, and it's even, I mean, managers maybe don't like it, they want their special papers just written for them, but I think it would be much better if people come from a common understanding and even have a common set of words with a meaning everybody can understand. Yeah, no, the next time talk will over. So, oh shit, wrong button. Yes, I'm not sure if I'm too clear here, but when you make the communication to your boss, and so through high-level communication, through high-level documentation, it helps. The documentation has to be clear, so that even he can understand it. So it's maybe better documentation for the end user as well. And of course, you develop a common language. And if also like the terminology of that, it can even has its resemblance in the source code, you have much lesser communication problems, and that is also one thing I meant with complete, like the full view. Alright, prototypes. There's where the most fun is. Of course, we like to write prototypes, and which I do too, and there's where the most coding stuff is. I distinguish between functional and use case prototypes. Functional is, yes, to say it simple, yeah, I put the wrong button instead, but this is the last time. Because it's functional prototypes is like, it's just to check if a thing, you rely on a lib and you maybe, it's good documented, but you can't never know if this works how it's supposed to be if you don't try it out. And the use case is of course the other, it's like implementing the feature, like in the smallest possible program. Of course, the functional libs don't rely, functional prototypes don't rely on any libs, only externals. In use case prototypes, you rely on your own, can rely on your libs. It's like when you program, you bridge like 2 points: the machine and the user. No? And in the functional prototype, you just optimize for this function, and there you optimize for the other end, and then you can just combine them, writing in a feature-based branch and bringing that feature into the code. Of course, the other thing is what's about coding, what's maybe not so common, but I found very useful. It's because, which is also one thing I mean with complete. So documentation and comments and all built together like one thing. So documentation is important for the code, but also code can document. And one of the things I mean with, when we like written our first sets of documentation and we have like the first terms are clear, with that word we mean that, and that's why this class should have the name so-and-so, we just go in the code and create this dummy class with that name. It's much, first of all, coders will understand it. If there's this class, if there's this file, they knew how, where their code should be fitted in, and you can also craft your ideas much, for at least then if I do UML diagrams, then if I do actual code, and the compiler or interpreter can even check you if it logically even works, if you make the classes, even if the methods or attributes are empty. Yeah? But you can set your name, and when it's in the code, first you have to write it twice, and secondly, it's for everyone to see. It's a means of communication. Yeah? And you avoid, that's why also duplication for that. Yeah. Tests will be written back on last. That's for the reason because I know in extreme programming tests are often employed as a means of thinking about what to achieve, but I think that is like trying to do two things at once. Writing the docs first when the idea is not so clear, I think better, because tests are programs, and programs are very precise. Yeah? Tests are about the difficult edge cases, and about these you should think when most of the design is laid out, when you have a clear understanding, then are the tests also much more effective. You don't have to rewrite them as much because the libs are now stable, and you get even the benefits of tests, which is instant warning if you break something, if you do them. Alright, there are of course many things I omitted because that's just a 20-minute talk. That's what I said about, or without looking at the doc. If you want to read more, it's in the documentation of Kepra, because I developed currently Kepra with that methodology, which is very pleasant. So it's not just air talk. The current main branch is the SP3 branch, but you see it when you go on Bitbucket. Just go into the doc directory and look for complete programming pod. There it is laid out in much more detail, and I will continue working on, and I wonder if you have any questions. Thank you.
You said these steps go in order, and the last step you had was tests. So are you rejecting testing development?
To a certain extent. I don't believe in tests first. Before you could, the point where you write a test is where you written your feature, and before the branch gets merged into the main branch, of course you have to add the test, so the test suite is always fully operational. That I found important, but you don't start by writing the test. Yes?
How can you write documentation before the code? Because it's not until you really get to the code that you learn what it is to really,
yes.
what environment.
Yes. There are certain. That's one of the points I didn't could go out in details. There are certain kinds of documentation. You have more the high-level documentation. Then you have the real, for the programmer who want to use some libs, and then you have, of course, the comments. When I meant documentation, I meant the high level, what you want to achieve. Of course, the low-level documentation, of course, you can just write when you've written the code. After the prototype, when you're currently coding that, of course, yes. The iterations are much more complicated, but I couldn't write it in a simple list, and it was simplified for 20 minutes, yes. Another question? All right. Thanks again.